Good evening. I'm going to call the City Council meeting of May 16th to order, and I'd like to make aware for the record that all council members are present. And now, if you will join me, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance and begin the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up is the consent calendar.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those signify support by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, order. All right, we'll now move into the better part of the program, and that's the recognitions and presentations. And the first one we have is one of our long-term volunteers that has worked with the city. I'll come out there. Merle Hufford was our Clayton City Treasurer for 20 years, 1997 through 2017. It was great. We're going to miss you. We certainly appreciated all your service, and we have a nice little plaque here in recognition of it, which says in grateful appreciation and recognition for dedicated service to the community of Clayton, October 1997 to March 2017. Merle, we really thank you for all the work you did as our treasurer.
Can
you get up? You got it? Okay, whoa, be careful, be careful.
Watch that first step.
Because we want the people at home to see you. Get that, and Julie's going to take your photograph.
Here we are.
Okay.
Way to go, Merle.
Yes, Merle. Introduce your family.
Yeah, I'm pleased to say that my baby sister is here, Dee Dee. And who's that? Oh, that's her husband, Tal. Dee Dee and Tal Sablins from Washington State.
Great. Yeah. All the way. And your bride's here with you, too?
And, yeah. Now appearing from... yeah.
Okay, thank you again, Merle. All right, best of luck to what you're going to be doing in the future. But thank you, we really appreciate it. Okay, the next thing we have a number of proclamations.
Jim, before you go ahead with that, I just want to say another thank you to Merle. You have been a godsend to us. You stepped up when we needed somebody. You were always there. If we needed an extra signature on a check because a council member wasn't around or the mayor wasn't around, you were there. And we could always depend on you, your advice, your thoroughness of reviewing all the documents. Just spectacular. And we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
And Jim, I just want to, small world category, Merle and Vicky were my neighbors in Dana Farms when I was a little kid, and I had no idea what he did. I just knew that they were neighbors, and then they moved away to Rich Clayton, and and then many years later I come back and I see that he's the treasurer, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And I just think it was really cool. So it's been a pleasure, working with you and all that you've done for the city, echoing Julie's sentiments. Thank you.
And also,
I'd like to add
More and more.
add on to that, certainly while we're at it, and want to emphasize again that this was a volunteer position. Merle volunteered his services over 20 years, and that was checking our budgets, our checks, our balance, make sure we're always balanced, and really watching how Clayton spends its money. So he's been a great asset, tough act to follow, and we want to again appreciate your service and thank you much for all your years.
I appreciate those kind words.
Yep.
And Clayton is a family, and the family sticks together and provides assistance whenever needed, and we sure have that in this wonderful town.
great.
Good.
Sir, Mr.
Yes,
City
thank
Manager.
you, Mr. Mayor. Merle knows how much I'll miss him. It was always good for him to come into City Hall because He and his family are probably the only Washington Husky fans I like. And we would kick around football and basketball. I'm a UCLA grad, and it was good times. So Merle, thank you so much. Not only did he keep our city treasury in great shape and whatnot, but this is just one of the most genuine good persons on the earth. So thanks.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great. Thank you again, Merle. Okay, the next portion of the agenda, we have a number of individuals out in the audience. I'd like to call them up. The Executive Director of the Trauma Regional Transfer Center and Chair of the Emergency Medical Committee for Contra Costa County, a Clayton resident, Casey Hansen. Come on up here. And then I'm going to read off this proclamation. I have it to be presented for the week that we're going to be declaring May 21st to the 27th as Emergency Medical Services Week. Also, I'd like to bring up Patricia Frost, who is the EMS Emergency Services Director for Contra Costa Health Services. Patricia's not coming up. Patricia's not coming up. All right. Hey, you're a fine substitute. All right, good. Okay, thank you, Marshall. And now, how about Roger Harless, the captain and paramedic from Paramedic Station 11, which is our own Station 11. Come on up, Captain. And this is another one of our important citizens that we want to make sure get recognized. Thank you. Let me read the proclamation. Each of you will get a copy of this for your respective organizations. But the City of Clayton is declaring May 21st to the 27th as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services, they are a vital service to our community. Access to quality emergency care and dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those experiencing sudden illness or injury. And by the way, I want to make a comment because both Councilmember Shuey and I were members of our task force when the station was reduced in services. And we watched the statistics over that period of time, and what most people may not recognize is that probably 70% or more of the calls for service to the fire district were for emergency medical service. So it's a very crucial part that responds to our citizens as we all at some point in our lives have to rely on that service at one or two times. Okay, whereas the members of the emergency services team are ready to provide compassionate, life-saving care to those on a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week basis, whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency medical dispatchers, law enforcement officers, emergency medical technicians, paramedic firefighters, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, first responders, educators, and administrators. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. EMS plays a critical role in public outreach and injury prevention and is involving in its role as an important member of the healthcare community. 2017 marks the 40th anniversary of the implementation of the paramedic program, enhanced EMS system within Contra Costa County. Very vital. Whereas Contra Costa EMS is recognized in the state as a leader of exceptional EMS system performance, improvement practices focused on improving patient care outcomes. In the last 10 years, the EMS system within Contra Costa County has sustained an exceptional trauma system and implemented a high-risk heart attack system called STEMI, stroke system, and cardiac arrest system for care. It is appropriate to recognize the value of the accomplishments of this emergency medical services provider, designating the whole week May 17th through 27th as Emergency Medical Services Week. Therefore, I, Jim Diaz, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby acknowledge May 21st through the 27th as Emergency Medical Services Week with the theme Emergency Strong, or EMS Strong, always in service, and to urge my fellow citizens to observe the week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. I'd like to give each one of you a copy of this proclamation. Here you are. If you'll give this to Patricia, Captain will give you this, and then we're going to take a photograph for the folks at home, and I'm going to give you each an opportunity to say a few words. Great. Oh, okay. Ranking order. I got it.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it very much. And we are a team, so I want to point out my fellow crew members back there, Battalion Chief Rob Bledsoe, Fire Engineer Shane Naveau, and my firefighter Todd Roach. Without them and if, working as a team, we wouldn't be able to implement the EMS care that we get.
This whole town relies on you guys very much. Thank you, Captain. How about a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Marshall Bennett, not Pat Frost. I am the Law Enforcement, Fire, and Dispatch Liaison for the Contra Costa County Emergency Medical Services Agency. On behalf of the agency, thank you, and we just want to make sure that all of the recognition and credit is directed towards folks like the captain and his crew here, Scotty Newell and the EMS responders who really, like you said, do this job 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on holidays, in the rain, in austere circumstances sometimes. We have a very highly evolved EMS system with a lot of high-level systems of care, and we are extremely proud of all of our providers on the ground who are really doing all the work. So thank you guys for your service, and thank you.
Again, I want to echo what Marshall said in terms of the first responders who have the really most difficult job in the EMS system. By the time I get them as either trauma or STEMI or stroke at one of our centers, they're all very neatly packaged. They tell me a nice little story, and I just get to take it from there. So my job is much easier than their jobs. So, but on behalf of John Muir Health, we are very happy to be able to provide tertiary care services within our own community. So people don't have to go far away for the level of services that we're able to provide as part of our EMS system. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and again, on behalf of all the city council and the citizens home who are watching via the television, we want to really thank you. You're a valued member of our community, and we appreciate the service that you provide. Because I want to tell you, when we were doing that work to try and get that station back to full standing, knowing all of the intricate parts of not only the fire department but also the EMS and all the dispatching service, I learned more about that than I knew existed. And it's really a valuable asset that we cherish very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Anything else my fellow council members would like to add at this time? Nothing. Okay, we will move ahead and move on to our reports. No Planning Commission meeting. Trails and Landscape, also no meeting this last time. City Manager and staff.
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. City Council members, we are all involved in a variety of responsibilities outside of the city, and we'll start off with Member David Shuey.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Tulia.
Okay, so for me, first I apologize. I was absent last time. I was at the ULI Urban Land Institute conference in Seattle. Heard a lot of interesting discussions about land use issues going on in the nation, including many housing discussions. And actually want to point out, the conference was held in Seattle, but Seattle is a very interesting sort of case example in the housing discussion. They've done relatively better job in keeping up with housing relative to job creation. So very interesting case study in that sense. But and very interesting given the situation we're currently in with a number of legislations pending in Sacramento, some of which could potentially take away some of the control that cities like us have in terms of our land use decisions. But in terms of other events, I did attend the mayor's conference on May 4th in Walnut Creek. And then other than that, I think with the school years coming to an end, I think Clayton citizens have had a number of fabulous performances in our local schools, including there's a theatrical performance by 4th and 5th graders on the Jungle Book the other week. And then there were 3 different concert musical performances at the elementary school and middle schools last week. So I think parents have been very spoiled with very great performances in our town.
Great. Vice Mayor Keith Hayden.
Just a few things. Also went to the mayor's conference with most of the council here. That was last Thursday. And then on a week ago Sunday, went to the Clayton Historical Society's annual garden tour, which is one of their main fundraisers that raises quite a bit of money to keep the museum running. And that's certainly a wonderful asset for Clayton. So was happy to take that tour and help them raise some money on that. And then this last Saturday, attended the first concert in the Grove concert. It kicks off our summer season. And again, we have a free concert every other Saturday night. So in 2 weeks, we'll have a second concert, and then throughout the summer, on through until September, every other Saturday is a nice free concert in our Grove Park. So great way to kick off the summer.
It was great. Councilmember Pierce.
Yes. It has been a busy couple of weeks. Just this afternoon, we had a planning meeting for the 4th of July parade. All volunteers welcome, encouraged, solicited, requested. We always need help on the day of the parade. And so come on down, ask somebody, and you will be assigned. It only takes a little bit to make a big difference, so we would appreciate that. Attended the Association of Bay Area Governments Regional Planning Committee meeting, the Mayor's Conference in Walnut Creek. The Metropolitan Transportation Commission had 6 meetings in the last 2 weeks. Also attended the open house for Plan Bay Area 2040, giving some idea to the residents of the region what we're looking at, the need for additional housing, the need for additional transportation options, those kinds of things. And so this is an interim update. No regional housing needs assessment with this particular update. That'll be in the one for 2021. We're looking at adoption by the end of July for this particular plan. Which also includes the regional transportation plan, which is required by federal law in order to qualify for federal transportation dollars. There aren't a ton of those out, but we're hoping that the president will make good on his infrastructure package, and there actually will be money forthcoming. So have to have that plan in place to qualify. Attended the Bay Area Council Economic Institute meeting down in San Carlos last week. Was a very interesting meeting. The guests of honor were Congressman Ro Khanna and Congressman Tim Ryan, talking about how to link Silicon Valley and the Heartland, and how Silicon Valley does not have to have all of its jobs here, but can actually use the technology, the expertise, the manpower in the Heartland of the United States to augment and bolster what we have here in the Bay Area. And Congressman Ryan is from the Cleveland region, Akron, Cleveland, that area of Ohio, and there have been some significant partnerships between Silicon Valley and some of these areas of Ohio where they have technology centers there, but they didn't have the education to train the people to do what Silicon Valley needs. So now Silicon Valley companies are paying for and training the folks there to fulfill the jobs that are needed by Silicon Valley. So in talking with one of the gentlemen from Silicon Valley who has put this program together, I asked him, I said, would you call this an onshoring of new jobs? And he said, absolutely. It's a way to keep the jobs from having to go offshore to where the training is in other parts of the world. It's actually training the people in the United States to do the jobs. So the coal mining regions of southeastern Ohio, particularly where the coal mines have closed, the technology is not there. A lot of people growing up feel like the only way they can stay there is if they do the same job their parents did. This is a way to evolve the technology, get the parents and the new young folks trained to live in the same area as they've grown up, but be able to do these really sophisticated jobs. And it's really a win-win for Silicon Valley and the Heartland. So I thought it was really a fascinating program, and I was really pleased to be able to hear them talk about it. Was able to attend the concert. The concerts in the Grove are in their 10th season. We have 14 major sponsors. We have 3 primary sponsors and, excuse me, 11 smaller sponsors who've bought space on our sponsor banners for $500 a piece. And we also are selling patron sponsor opportunities where you will get an embroidered hat and a pin for a $200 contribution for the season. And that is going to be something that will be a collector's item with a different design every year. And you wear those and you get acknowledged and you don't get harassed by those of us passing the jug for donations, because wearing the hat and the pin indicate that you've already given your $20 per concert in that $200 donation. So we look forward to having more people take part in that, and maybe that relieves us a little bit of some of the walking around. Also attended the farmers market on Saturday, which is got a few more vendors than we've had in the past, some new ones, which was wonderful. And I understand there are 3 or 4 more that are going to join them this next week. Some of them didn't get there last week, but there will be more coming. So very busy 2 weeks, and Clayton is just hopping.
Great, thank you. Myself, I was involved on several things as well. As the representative for the city on the County Connection Board for all of the local bus transit and transportation issues, I chair the Marketing, Planning, and Legislative Committee, which happened on Thursday the 4th in the morning. Then later that evening, I went to Walnut Creek for the Mayor's Conference, where all of our council members, most of our council members attended. We got a very informative presentation by the county librarian and all the things that are going on in that area as well. The next morning, got up early and went to the Sunrise Clayton Concord Rotary Club. They had just celebrated 30 years of their service to the community, and we have a certificate of recognition that I'll be presenting to them again at their next meeting. But a very active group. In fact, they will be out on the 4th of July as usual to have the pancake breakfast served before the parade. Also attended the farmers market, which was great. And as Councilmember Pierce mentioned, there are a growing number of vendors that will be joining, and it is already got many things there that will be of interest to you, and the things that in terms of fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and other great items. That night, again, the concert, which was the Rockin' in the Highway group. I understand the next one has the cheese balls. Okay, we'll see how they do. And then, of course, everybody, I hope, had a good Mother's Day with their families on the 14th. That concludes all of those reports. I'll move into item number 6, which is public comment for non-agenda items. And I do have a card that I would like to ask Rob Lutzow to come up from the fire district and give us an update on what's going on with the fire services.
Sure. Let me reset my phone here. That I just lost where I was at. The cheese balls are gonna love them, by the way. Yeah, they're good. Put on your 80s outfits and enjoy yourselves. It's good little band. So just to update you, I wanted to go back and kind of cover this being the 40th anniversary of the emergency medical services in Contra Costa County. Kind of go back in history and talk about that real quick. So 40 years ago, 77, right? Previous to that, right about that time, but previous to that, the ambulances were all owned by funeral homes for the most part. And they came to your house, threw you in the back of a Cadillac, and hauled butt to the hospital and hoped for the best. There was a little bit of treatment on the way there, but that's pretty much how emergency medical services were previous to 1977. Then came along Johnny and Roy. Those were a couple of guys on a squad in LA County where I sat on the floor and ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and watched these guys on TV, and they brought paramedicine into mainstream, basically. They responded on a squad, and they communicated by, what was it? I guess it was a telephone to a certain hospital, and they talked to the doctor, and the doctor basically talked them through how to treat people. Fast forward 40 years, and where we are today is basically bringing that first 15 minutes of the emergency room to your home. So our fire engines, our ambulances, and our people, and our dispatchers, of course, who start the process, have basically brought us to where we've brought that first 15 minutes to your house. So we're able to give you oxygen, of course, look at your heart rhythm, see what your heart rhythm is doing, and administer medications to correct that or to keep you stabilized until we get you to the emergency room and carry on the care that they do in the emergency room. So just a little history and where we've come. It's pretty impressive. And in 40 years from now, hopefully I'm still here and I'm needing the services. Who knows what the heck's going to be going on and how good it's going to be out here. So again, we appreciate your support, and we appreciate the fact we're able to provide this care, and we do a pretty darn good job, these guys do. So with that, I just wanted to bring a couple of calls that we've had recently. Ones that we seem to have a lot here in the city of Clayton is, of course, when people are recreating in the mountain. So in the last 2 weeks, we've rescued 3 people off the mountain. That not only includes just our units, but now we have air support through the sheriff's office, and we have a captain paramedic who's on that helicopter. And so when we have people that we can't access by vehicle, the helicopter will come in and package those patients and bring them to a spot where the ambulance can transport them. So it's a very good program that we have now that we're working with the sheriff's office to provide. It's pretty impressive to watch, actually. We've had 2 vehicle accidents recently on Kirker Pass Road, not so much in the city of Clayton, but it does affect your constituents here and the people that are passing through, pretty significant ones. On May 9th, we had a vehicle over the embankment in which we had someone trapped in their vehicle down an embankment, and what that entails for us is to get them out of their car, of course, and then package them and get them up the hill, which is pretty intense for us to have to get all that done. And we also had an accident the very next day, same place actually, where a vehicle into a pole, and we had power lines down, which affected traffic coming to and from on Kirker Pass Road. So those are just some of the significant events we've had in the last 2 weeks, not to mention the run-of-the-mill medicals that we run every day. Some of the things I also want to talk about is things that are going to be coming up here. Of course, it's summertime's coming, it's going to be getting hot, and so that affects your fire services here and medical services as well. So, of course, with fire season coming, we get busy later on in the afternoon when it gets hot and fires become more intense. And so just knowing that we'll be busy with those. The other thing that the heat does is brings on medical problems for people that overexert themselves, not only on the mountain, but around town too, of course. And then, of course, we have concerts at the Concord Pavilion, which every year seems to bring a lot of responses from our services out there. So I mentioned that because I know it's not in the city of Clayton, but it does draw our services over there. So when we are providing services over there, your services over here can be affected. So we recognize that, and we move people into cover to protect this area as well, as quickly as we can. With wildfire season coming, things to be looking out for are growth. So this year, with all the rain that we've had, we've noticed that the growth of all of our wildland grasses are what usually are 3 feet are now 5 to 6 feet. And for us, that means not only it's going to burn hotter, burn faster. Flame lengths get taller, 20 feet, come off those 6-footers, and before you know it, that fire is racing. So things for you guys to be looking out to help us out would be weed abatement, of course. If you're noticing something where you have some overgrown areas, of course, we want to work with you and our weed abatement program to get those things taken care of ahead of time. So the access issues with Morgan Territory, that's been taken care of as far as emergency services are concerned. They have put in a road, so we're able to access that. For about 3 weeks or so last month, we had to have an alternate route to get over to that area. So that's all been taken care of, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. So services are back up to speed there. And that's basically what I wanted to bring to you today. Just kind of give you a little bit of history of the fire service and what we're providing. And of course, I can answer any questions, hopefully, that you might have.
Yes, Councilmember Pierce.
Yeah, I think we had it in our weekly report from the city manager, but for the public, the deadline to do weed abatement and clear out all that overgrowth that you were talking about is?
That's a good question. We've already started fire season. Was dedicated or was started on May 12th, which was last Friday. So if you have growth, we encourage you to cut down prior to noon, early in the morning when it's cooler out and that type of thing. So I'll leave it at that. I don't have an exact drop date to stop clearing, but we're still good right now.
Great.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I do have the
Yes,
drop
sir.
date, May 26th.
That's what I thought. It was before the end of May, before the Memorial Day weekend.
Looking forward to the weather. It looks
Get
like that's
it
going to
done.
be right on point.
Yeah,
so.
I know there are a few yards around town that need some attention, so people need to get busy and get that done right away.
Right. Okay. Like I said, we're always open to hear from you.
Two quick, you mentioned the Morgan territory. Is that completely cleared now and open for two-way traffic now?
As far as emergency services is concerned, we are good to go. I haven't personally been out there,
Yeah.
but I know that we have a traffic signal in place, and I believe it's single lane.
Okay, it's a
One way
single
or
lane
the
with
other.
traffic light
Line
control,
each
yeah.
place, yeah. So.
It's single lane, local traffic only, and it is 5-minute controlled lights. And unfortunately, sometimes the bicycles are conflicting with the cars, so they're asking bikes to please stay off of Morgan territory.
When you said you had some rescues up on the hill, are those hikers that have gotten off and gotten lost, or are they having medical problems?
Usually what it is a broken ankle.
Oh,
To be
really?
honest,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we have people up there that are hiking, having a good time, and they step off a rock, slip, whatever they do, twist it and break an ankle. And it seems like it's not a big deal to break an ankle, but in order to get off that mountain, it takes a lot to get them off the mountain with a broken ankle. So that's why we bring in, a lot of times we bring in the helicopter. If we can reach them by ground, we will. But it gets a little dicey, especially with the late rains. We had a lot of issues trying to get on those roads.
Okay.
And again, to add with that too, we have a lot of people that come to the Regency area to start their hike. Basically, I've been down there a few times, and the parking down there, which I'm sure you guys know, is it's an issue. But one issue that I noticed is where our fire trail goes. There's a cutout basically, and our fire trail goes, but it's not painted red, and so a lot of people are just kind of parking where they park, and we can get around that by going around and coming back to Mount Terra. It just would extend our response time. So just to be aware that that's going on. And if it was painted red, it might help us out. Willing to work with you on that, of course.
Great. Thank you very much for
All right.
the update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very much appreciate the service. Okay, anybody else that wishes to address the council on a non-agenda item? Seeing none, I'm going to close that section of the agenda. We'll now move into public hearings, and the first one we have is 7A, which is the public hearing to consider the introduction of the first reading of a proposed city-initiated ordinance number 475, updating the Clayton Municipal Code, Title 15, Building and Construction, Section 15.08, Signs Provisions, to comply with the United States Supreme Court recent decision in Reed versus the Town of Gilbert, Arizona, to prohibit mobile billboards and to incorporate other best practices. Mindy Gentry, our Community Development Director.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. This item is a public hearing to consider a city-initiated ordinance amending the sign provisions of the Clayton Municipal Code in order to comply with the United States Supreme Court decision in Reed versus Town of Gilbert, Arizona, to prohibit mobile billboards and to incorporate other best practices. The United States Supreme Court ruled in the case Reed versus Town of Gilbert that the provisions of a municipality's sign code must be content neutral. Portions of the Town of Gilbert sign code were struck down by the court due to the sign code subjecting ideological, political, and directional signs to different rules with respect to size, location, length, and display time. The court was clear that as long as the regulation is not based upon a sign's message, local governments may regulate size, lighting, location, timing, and size of signs, and the number of signs. The majority of the proposed changes to the municipal code are to the definitions section, so as to not distinguish between sign content such as ideological, political, or directional, and to maintain content neutrality. Another proposed change is the prohibition of mobile billboards. While this has not been an issue in the city, staff is recommending this prohibition in the interest of the public for the safe movement of vehicular traffic, reduction of air pollution, and to improve the aesthetic appearance of the city. The ordinance has also left other methods of advertising available. Lastly, there were a few cleanup items, such as the deletion and addition of zoning districts that have been removed or added since the last update to the sign code was completed, as well as there were changes for consistency, such as sign heights and the prohibition of signs to be located within the public right-of-way, except for event or city-sponsored events. Therefore, it's recommended that the City Council motion to have the city clerk read ordinance number 475 by title and number only and waive further reading, and secondarily, motion to approve ordinance number 475 for introduction to amend the Clayton Municipal Code, sign provisions in order to comply with the United States Supreme Court decision in Reed versus the Town of Gilbert, Arizona, to prohibit mobile billboards and to incorporate other best practices. That concludes my staff report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that the council
Great.
may have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Yes, Councilmember Pierce.
Yeah, the last time we updated the sign code, we had a long, drawn-out discussion about the size of what would now be called temporary non-commercial signs, i.e. political signs, other things that are posted around town. And I note that in the new ordinance, the size limit on that is 30 square feet. We said 3 square feet. I think the town will go ballistic if we start allowing 4x8 signs in residential areas and on personal property. I'm wondering if there's a reason that we cannot go back to the 3 square feet for all of those signs that qualify. They're not just campaign signs, any.
Correct. This would apply across the board then. So you'd be severely restricting any other type of, community organization type signs to a 3 square foot limit.
Exactly.
And just to note that that 30 square feet was a policy decision that staff recommended. Legal counsel says that 80 square feet has been held up in the courts. However, it's still possible that the council can make a policy call in terms of the square
I
footage.
got to tell you, we had such a discussion when this came up the last time. And the public testimony that we got from this community was absolutely not. We do not want billboards in people's front yards. We know that they're temporary, but we don't want them. We don't want the sign blight. I mean, it was a really emotional issue, and I don't know that there was anyone who wanted the billboards in personal yards and things like that. So I would be all in favor of restricting it back to the 3 or maybe 4 max, but
I would second that.
I can't go along with that part of it.
I also recall that discussion, and it sounds like we can make a policy decision at that. We may be subject to potentially a lawsuit, but frankly, that's a risk that's pretty minimal in my view.
If all
and
of
something-
that category is the same,
Yeah, no,
it's not content related.
Yeah.
It's just that it may be considered too small in
There,
general.
there's a risk. I think it's a minimal risk, and it's a risk that I'd be willing to take at this point. I think the odds are slim and none that we would do
Tell
it.
me
but-
who this would impact besides that. I mean, a temporary, non-commercial sign, what would that be other than community events and stuff like that we already,
It would be political signs. It would also be signs for religious organizations, nonprofit organizations, and essentially any non-commercial signage.
I don't think we have anything bigger than that now. Do we? Am I forgetting something?
All the signs at the entryway, like at the, right as you enter,
Those are the banners.
right?
Yeah,
But
event
banners are
banners.
signs.
Yeah.
But they're signs.
But they're under a different category, aren't they?
I think so.
Are they? Event
think
banners under a
so.
different category?
Yeah, banners are up here under a different,
Yeah, it is
Definition.
exempt.
Okay.
The only other comment that I would have is, which we can do, is because this is a significant change, we would need to take it back to Planning Commission for their review.
Really?
Yeah. It's in our zoning code, and so they have to make recommendations to the council, which they have done, but to the extent you have a significant change that they didn't consider, that,
Okay.
which we can do. We can take it back and bring
This
it
is
forward.
a big deal to me. This is a huge deal.
I'm
Any
I'm
other-
behind Julie.
Any other comments?
Well, my only other comment was, I would just, observation that this seems to have been initiated with Supreme Court ruling on the content neutral issue, but you've taken advantage of looking at the sign ordinance to update it with all the new requirements. And my question was going to be, does this really encompass everything that you would suggest or recommend that we change? And it sounds like we do have one change already being suggested based on the previous hearing. So I want to take advantage of looking at the sign ordinance to,
This was a comprehensive update to do any cleanup items and best practices as well.
okay.
All right,
Sounds like based on public hearing that was held quite a while ago,
right.
needs a little work on
Well,
it still.
You know, it's interesting because every time campaign season comes around, we all get phone calls. Where are the sign locations in Clayton? I want to put my 4x8s up. And we all tell them, can't do that.
Right.
And our community is so happy that we don't have those signs. And even for nonprofits or community groups, we manage to do just fine with that smaller sign size. And the process to be able to get a permit to put them in certain locations, that works too. So I think this one needs to be looked at again.
Any other comments? Okay, this is a public hearing item, so I'm going to open it up for comments from the audience. Please come up, state your name and where you reside, and we'll take your input. No one rushing forward. All right, we will close. You want to speak to it? Please come up. State your name and your, not necessarily your address, but if you are a resident.
That's fine. Hi, I'm Dan Hummer. I'm a Clayton resident, live over in Stranahan. I actually agree with Julie. Thank you for saying no to having large signs like that all over the place. You know, I'd rather keep it smaller is better. So, little public comment.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Any further public comment on this item? Yes, come right forward.
I don't have to get up there.
Yeah, you do,
Yeah,
actually.
we can't hear you at home.
I'm sorry.
We want to know who you are.
My name's Russ Ramoy. I live at 1843 Yolanda Circle. I've lived here a long time, and I love this city so much. I love it. I couldn't be happier. One of the biggest concerns I get these notices is you guys are you're talking about high-density housing a lot.
That's a
No,
different
no,
item.
that's not this item. This is on
next
the,
item, sir.
this is on the sign.
Yeah, well.
We'll come up that,
Okay.
Hold that
Okay.
thought on density.
Hold
I
it.
got a
Yeah.
notice.
You'll get a chance.
And the thing is that, I live off of Oakhurst, and we're talking about Sino's property off of Oakhurst. I was so concerned about the high density you're talking about.
Okay.
The condo.
we'll address that in the next item. Right now, we're talking about the proposed sign ordinance.
Yeah, well, that's, okay. So that was what it was. Well,
Okay.
okay.
We
I've
haven't
got
finished
enough.
with the other item.
Hold your thought.
Yes.
You can come up for the next item.
Right, for the next item.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
It's okay.
That's okay.
you know.
Anybody else wish to speak on item 7A? Hearing or seeing none, I'm going to close that and move it back to the council for any further discussion.
I would move that we refer this back to the Planning Commission to review this proposed change.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing, did you have?
Just as a point of clarification in regards to direction, is there concerns over the aggregate square footage or each individual sign size or both?
Both.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, 3 square feet per property.
Aggregate total, period.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make
Thank
it
you.
small.
Got it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those signify support by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, and so ordered. Now we move into item 7B, which is a public hearing to consider a proposed city-initiated general plan amendment to modify the determination of residential developmental acreage and density calculations and to not require a minimum density on residential designated property with sensitive land areas, and the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 476, adding section 17.22 residential density calculations for residential parcels with the sensitivity land areas to Title 17, zoning of the Clayton Municipal Code, describing and determining how general plan densities are calculated to proposed residential projects with sensitive land areas. Mindy Gentry.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, this is a general plan amendment to modify how residential densities are calculated. And to not require a minimum density, and there's an associated ordinance that's also being proposed to describe and determine how general plan residential densities are to be calculated for residential projects on parcels with sensitive land areas. As a precursor, I'm going to be discussing the Silver Oaks Estate project as a real-life example of why these amendments are being proposed. However, this project is not on the agenda, therefore staff is recommending the discussion not to focus on the merits or the details of the project. It's merely just a real-world example to show the beneficial necessity of the proposed amendments. So the Silver Oaks Estate project, as proposed, consists of 59 units, which are comprised of 7 single-family homes, 28 townhomes, and 24 green courts, which is proposed to be constructed at the terminus of Lydia Lane. The currently proposed project has been in various stages of the city's entitlement process since 2010. And due to staff attrition and following staff's cursory review of the project in 2016, it became apparent that the attached product type of the townhomes and green courts being proposed by the applicant were not in conformance with the city's general plan. The general plan designation for the property is single-family medium density, which calls for 3.1 to 5 units per acre with a product type of single-family detached homes. The current general plan designation would allow for 43 to 70 units on the subject property. And while the proposed number of units, 59, fits within the overall allowed density, the various single-family detached product types, the general plan land use designation is reserved for various single-family detached product types. Therefore, the proposed attached product type would not fit within the general plan designation, would only fit within one of the multifamily general plan land use designations. So if the project applicant wanted to further pursue the proposed product type, a general plan amendment to multifamily low density would be required and would result in a minimum unit count of 106 units, which is an increase of 47 units above the proposed 59. On the other hand, if the applicant were to try and fit the prescribed product type of detached single-family homes on the subject site, it would result in a small lot development of detached homes, more than likely with a 0 lot line and/or minimal setbacks. Given the physical constraints or sensitive land areas on the property, it's questionable whether the parcel is large enough to even fit a detached single-family product type in the density range prescribed by the general plan. So for illustrative purposes, let's look at this pictorially. So the areas that are pink, green, and gray are all physical constraints on the Silver Oaks property. These areas represent creeks, a creek setback, and sloped areas. And so it leaves only the white areas possible for development without any constraints. So more specifically, the Silver Oak Estates project has an undevelopable habitat conservation easement area of 6.53 acres, or 47% of the total project site, which makes it infeasible for a development project to fit within the parameters of the general plan. And just for a point of clarification, that 47% does not include any of the topography on that site either. So why is this happening? This issue is occurring because the general plan bases the density range on the legal or gross acreage of the parcel, whether or not there are physical constraints or sensitive land uses on the property. Another way to categorize the issue would be trying to fit unwarranted density on a site that is really much smaller given the constraints that exist. By not providing the option of using the net acreage by subtracting the strained property, this could result in a less desirable project for the city. So the general plan requirement for density on the legal or gross acreage of the parcel fits for those properties that are flat and or minimally constrained. However, this requirement does not appropriately apply to those properties that are limited in their developable land due to large physical site constraints. The city of Clayton is approximately 98% built out, and there are many of the available properties left to develop are marginal or more difficult, particularly properties with site constraints such as slopes or creeks. These proposed changes would allow density calculations to be determined based off the net developable acreage of the parcel, as well as not require the minimum density to be met for sites that have sensitive land areas. The overall intent of these amendments would be to prevent unwarranted density on a site that is really much smaller, given the constraints exist, and to provide the city with the opportunity for more desirable developments, rather than applying a singular approach in regards to the determination of density. Further, this proposed change will allow constrained lots containing sensitive areas to meet both the prescribed general plan product type and density range, particularly for the single-family residentially designated parcels. Further, given the community's lack of interest for higher density housing development and the general plan's support of lower density developments, these amendments would apply to and be required for all qualifying property and not optional. The proposed general plan amendment captures the intent and vision as discussed in the goals of the general plan. The amendment would decrease the overall density to help retain the rural character of Clayton while balancing a variety of housing types and densities. The amendment will also help to preserve natural features, ecology, and scenic vistas by decreasing the overall required density on a property that has sensitive land areas such as creeks and rock outcroppings. The city has a total regional housing needs allocation of 141 units, and the city has a total estimated capacity within its housing element of 272 units, giving the city an estimated housing surplus of 131 units. This proposed amendment would only impact parcels with sensitive land uses or sensitive land areas. Therefore, it's anticipated the decrease in density will still result in adequate capacity to accommodate the city's RHNA obligation, given the large surplus of 131 units. The proposed changes to the zoning code would further define and determine the calculation of residential densities when there are sensitive land areas on a property. The ordinance sets the parameters for determining developable acreage, as well as what sensitive land areas are to be considered excluded from the gross or legal acreage of the parcel. The sensitive land areas that were identified were features that were clearly definable and constituted areas that cannot be developed, should avoid being developed, or should be preserved due to their environmental value, such as floodplains, creeks, and wetlands. For illustrative purposes, if a developer has a property that is 10 legal or gross acres in size, and the property has a general plan designation of single-family medium density, which has a density range of 3.1 to 5 units per acre, it results in a density range of 31 to 50 units. However, if the property happens to contain such as sensitive land areas, such as 1.3 acres of land within the 100-year floodplain and 0.7 acres with a slope that exceeds 26%, then those two combined acres would need to be subtracted from the gross or legal acreage of the parcel to determine the developable acreage. Following the exclusion of those particular areas, it would result in 8 developable acres, which would create a density range of 24.8 to 40 units per acre. This calculation results in lowering the overall density on residential parcels with sensitive land areas. I would also like to note that city staff did receive an email from Mr. Bill Jordan earlier today noting, which should be placed on the dais and also in the back of the room, noting his support for the amendments, however, was requesting an exclusion for his property, which is the vacant piece of land on High Street behind the U.S. Post Office. So with that, staff is recommending that the city council first motion to approve the resolution amending the land use element of the general plan to modify the determination of residential developable acreage and density calculations and not require a minimum density on parcels with sensitive land areas. Secondly, motion to have the clerk read ordinance number 476 by title and number only and waive further reading. And lastly, motion to approve ordinance number 476 for introduction, adding section 17.22, residential density calculations for residential parcels with sensitive land areas to the Clayton Municipal Code, describing and determining how general plan residential densities are calculated for proposed residential projects on parcels with sensitive land areas.
Thank you.
And with that, I'd happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes, Council.
I just want to make sure it's really clear, because we have folks, I'm sure, in the room as well as at home who have been confused about this issue. I just want to clarify by giving a different kind of an example. Say we have a property with 10 acres and half of it is over a 25% slope or along the creek. That would, in effect, reduce by half the number of homes that could be built on that property, correct?
Correct.
That's what I wanted to clarify. This is actually having the effect of looking carefully at the sensitive habitat within our community and eliminating those acres from the calculation for allowable buildings, thereby reducing the number of possible buildings on those properties. So that is actually improving upon those properties significantly and leaving them at much lower development than was previously allowed, correct?
That's a correct summary, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Keith.
Kind of building on that, your example of Silver Oak certainly would.
Nice
Pardon?
Nice pun.
It's not to evaluate that particular project. That project was used as an example of why this amendment is being proposed, to reduce the density on lots that have unbuildable areas on that lot due to slope or other environmental concerns, to reduce the density rather than increase it.
Correct, and to rectify the difference between the product type that's called for in the general plan that may not be able to be constructed if you have these physical constraints on the site. Because it requires so much land, for instance, to build a single-family home, with a backyard and the house on the site. So you have to have so many acres in order to fit that number of homes that are prescribed for in the general plan. So
This amendment would be more in keeping with the character, the rural nature of the Clayton community, much more than the strict application of the way it's currently written, the general plan. So
Yes, that's
why
correct.
the amendment is being proposed.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions as well. So I was actually on the Planning Commission last fall when we first sort of thought about this idea as to whether everything should be treated based on gross acreage versus whether some sites with physical constraints should be based on a net acreage. At the time, we didn't have any of the criteria, and I think staff went back and sort of started developing the criteria that would trigger the the constraints. So I have a couple of questions on a couple of the constraints we're proposing in that section 17.22.30. So the number 2 is land or slopes exceeding 26%. I assume it's grade. I'm sort of wondering, I mean, it's a significant grade, but I'm wondering where the 26 versus something else.
the 26% actually came out of the general plan.
Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, perfect. And then number 4 is rock outcropping. So I get a lot of the other criteria that are sort of endangered species or wetlands or creeks and things like that, but why rock outcroppings? Because presumably you could alter those, but is that sort of a intent to preserve them in some way, or?
Rock outcroppings are identified in CEQA as a natural resource, so those were identified. There's something to easily to quantify in terms of how big they are. So that was one of the criteria that staff was utilizing, was clearly definable features and ones that could be easily identifiable with a actual acreage to be associated with them. So that's the reason why it was included.
Okay. And I do see that you have a number 7 as well, which is sort of allows the flexibility if you have some other site or some other circumstance that we have envisioned already in these other criteria. Then my other question is, so typically in our zoning designations, we have a density range. We have a minimum, let's say the 3.1 units per acre, and then a maximum like the 5 units per acre. So in this scenario, when we have sensitive land areas, you know, we have the maximum still, but we've removed, I think, the minimum, and I'm wondering what the logic is for removing that minimum.
So essentially, the logic behind it was if there's something that they can't even meet the minimums because the site is so constrained, to having to, you know, go through a reiterative process of amending the general plan again in order to build, you know, in this particular case for Silver Oak, you know, a different number of homes to try to lower the density range or something to that effect. It was to kind of prevent an additional step or process if there happened to be something that staff didn't quite think about during this process. It's kind of a catch-all.
Okay. Because I guess I would think that, you know, because you're taking away some of those constrained areas, so you're still left with some, and, you know, I would think that you'd still be able to apply the minimum to it, but I guess you're envisioning if the site is just too small that you just simply can't
That's
make
correct.
it work. Yeah, okay, very good, thank you.
Any other? All right, this is a public hearing item, and I'm going to open it up. I have a couple of cards, and want to remind everybody to state your name, and also that you each have 3 minutes to speak on this item, 7B, and the first one will be Brian Bedell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I appreciate the time to speak. By way of background, my name is Brian Bedell. I live in the Peacock Creek development, where in August I will have lived there for 2 years with my wife and 2 children. We moved to Clayton back in 2015. Yeah, 2015. After looking at a lot of other communities. I've had friends who've lived in Clayton for decades. One of the draws was certainly not the commute. I'm a trial attorney who works in San Francisco. My office is in San Francisco, and I fly throughout the state trying cases, so it's certainly not the most convenient commute for me. But what drew me to this city was the rural nature, the beautiful vistas, the sense of community, and the pride in the community itself. What caused me to rule out places like Walnut Creek and Concord and some of the surrounding areas that certainly would have been more convenient for me, and in many ways had similar things to offer in the way of good school districts, senses of community, etc., were the fact that Clayton didn't have the urban sprawl in the way of condominiums and apartment complexes like Concord does, like Walnut Creek does. Areas that you can't get near the BART stations because the parking is so dense, because there's just no room. While I understand the, I'll call it spin, being put on this this proposed amendment to preserve the rural nature, it's not doing anything of the sort. I understand how you're trying to say that it precludes the single-family units, but when you've got a situation where it's going to allow a 60-unit condominium, that's just not right. It's not in conformance with the city of Clayton, and even as a newcomer, I can recognize that. I think a fatal flaw in this whole proposal is also the fact that it's based on a 1985 environmental impact report. In 1985, this city was 21 years old. The Environmental Protection Agency was only 20 years old. I was only, we won't go there. But the key here is, in the 35 or 30 plus years that have passed since that environmental impact report, a lot has gone down. And for one, I think it's going to open this plan to potential legal challenges, which, to be perfectly honest, I will look into myself, and perhaps spearhead challenges if necessary, and will certainly put any potential developers on notice of that. And secondly, it raises lots of questions as to whether this is simply rushing into something. You know, the whole motto of the city of Clayton is to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. this isn't the right thing to do, or at the very most, we don't know that it's the right thing to do because it hasn't been properly evaluated. With that, I submit that I'm in opposition to this proposal, and I believe that the majority of the community, at least based on what I've heard, is. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. David Neiman?
Good evening, Council. So my name is David Neiman. I live at 5903 Cardenay Drive, a property that's adjacent to the Silver Oaks development. The main reason why my dad initially bought my home back in 1972 was because it was so close to the Clayton Creek there. And me and my brother spent the majority of our childhood running amok through the creek. And I don't think it's any stretch of, I don't think it's an exaggeration at all to say that I've probably been through that area of creek more than any other human. Like literally. Like every Saturday, every day after school, I was knee-deep, waist-deep in the water, going through there, catching frogs, doing all sorts of stuff. And it's one of the reasons why I love Clayton so much. And it's one of the reasons why I moved back to Clayton. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. I love Clayton. Why I moved back to Clayton from Boston so that my kids can have that same experience, because Clayton is such a unique place. So it's, I want to thank Mindy for going through and trying to break down this kind of confusing proposal. But I think the reason it is confusing is it seems like it constricts the number of acres that are considered, but then it increases the number of units that could be built. Is that, maybe I'm misunderstanding it? Because it does seem like it constricts the number of acres in your calculation. Is that right? Of developmental acres? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Give the answer.
Would you like to, sure,
Yeah.
it decreases the overall developable acreage, but it does, so therefore it will decrease the number of units that are on one particular site
Okay.
that has sensitive land areas. So, and this would be, community-wide. However, so the increase in units is false. Only if the developer wanted to pursue a multifamily type development, because the applicant currently has multifamily proposed for the Silver Oak site. However, that is not in conformance with the general plan. The general plan calls for single-family detached homes, not townhomes or any type of attached homes. So therefore, in order to meet that general plan density range and the product type, this would take into consideration those sensitive land areas and reduce the overall developable acreage. The density range would still stay the same, but because you don't have as many acres to apply that density range to, would decrease the overall units on that particular site. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm still a little confused because it says general plan identifies 43 to 70 units for the site. But then on the next page, it says that, this change would result in a minimum unit count of 106.
That's if the multifamily route was taken.
Yeah.
If the developer wanted to continue with an attached product type.
So I think, as far as a property owner and adjacent property, I'm going to assume that the developer would try and have the maximum number of units in the site. So I think that's a fair assumption.
Just also one more point of clarification, the applicant would have to actually change the general plan into multifamily in order to get those 106 units.
Okay.
And it's currently not,
It's
it is not
designated
designated
for
for
multifamily?
that. That was merely for math purposes and demonstrating that if they wanted to continue with an attached townhome type product type,
Okay.
they would have to amend the general plan for that.
Okay. It's a confusing amendment. I'm glad.
Welcome to government.
Yeah, no kidding. Anyway, I won't take up anyone else's time, but I will say, I will ask, I guess, one more question. Does approving this amendment enable the development of the site? I'll leave that open to anyone.
Please.
The site is slated for development. It has had a general plan designation of single-family medium density as far as back as the general plan goes. So does it enable it? No, it's already been slated for development. It's just a matter of what is going to go there in terms of a project.
Okay, follow-up question. Can we return to the map slide?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's possible.
Yep.
Is there's kind of a peninsula created by the creek there, a white area. Is that, do you know, is that designated as flood zone, 100-year flood zone? Does anyone know?
I'm sorry, which point?
This area?
I'm not sure. I don't think I have a.
So
I
I
don't
guess
think that is the 100. I think because the creek, the pink areas are the actual creek. The width of the actual creek, and then the setback is the green area.
But in addition to that setback, because there's a steep berm surrounding the creek, there's a floodplain area. I know because I live in it, and all the houses in my neighborhood have to pay flood insurance. Even though we live behind a large berm, and my house is like 300 yards away from the creek, and will never be flooded in 1,000 years. Compared to that area of land that is not protected by any sort of berm and is, 25 feet away from the creek. So I would be very surprised if it was not in the floodplain area.
Actually, the two dots and a long dash is the floodplain.
This is the 500-year floodplain.
Yeah,
And then this dash line here is the 100-year.
right.
That is amazing to me. Because I live like here, and I'm in the floodplain. And I also live behind a berm. So that is amazing to me.
Downhill.
Yeah. No, not downhill. Okay, I will, thank you. I think I've already exceeded my 3 minutes, but I'll just further my support with other people that have spoken about our love for Clayton's, rural nature, and any amendment that would impede that, I would be opposed to. So thank you.
All right, Mr. Neiman, thank you. Mark Ventura.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Mark Ventura. I live in Ontario Court in the Westwood development. I have a couple of questions. The amendment, if I understand, removes the minimum density requirement on the sensitive areas, right? But what about removing the minimum densities on the non-sensitive areas? Why do we even have that? And then the second question is, if I'm a developer or I'm the landowner, and we say, okay, there's this slope of 26%, I cannot develop. What prevents me to challenge that and say, I'm going to build a wall, a retaining wall, I'm going to push that slope further, and I'm going to expand in that non-developable land, now I can develop on that land and extend the gray area, for instance, turn them from a non-developable acreage to a area that I can count and build more homes.
Mindy, would you answer the questions for him?
The 26% slopes has to do with the existing topography on the site. So prior to the developer seeking entitlements from the city, they're going to go out and map, the slopes that are contained on the site. So if they're to go out and grade the site, which they would have to get a permit to do anyway, they're going to already have their identified developable areas. So that's not going to come into question in regards to, grading the site to change the slope areas to fit more density, and that's not the way the process works.
And what about the first question in terms of the minimum density? Do we have to have a minimum density on?
The general plan identifies in all of its designations a density range. And there's a minimum and a maximum.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Mindy, would you clarify? I think one of the other questions that he asked was, does the minimum density range apply to the entire property or to just the developable land? And as we understand it now, with the exemption of these non-developable acres, it only applies to the net after those are subtracted.
That's correct, yes.
So it lowers the number of units that can be built.
And that's an important point.
Very important, yeah.
Is anyone else wish to address the council on item 7B? Please come forward, state your name.
I'm Dan Hummer, once again. I had a question actually in regards to Mr. Jordan's property. You had mentioned that he wanted to possibly have that excluded from the minimum, because there's quite a slope actually that goes up on that property. Will that actually, I don't know if that's 26% or not, I'm not sure if you're aware of what the slope would be over there, if his property would be affected by this at all. Because, you know, it does actually slope up quite a bit there. I'm just kind of hoping that it would actually reduce the number of possible units that could be developed over there.
I believe there are slopes on his property that exceed 26%, but we haven't received anything detailed submittal or calculations showing what the grades are on that property.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Would you mind filling out one of the cards? Oh, you did? Okay, great, thank you. Anybody else wish to address the council?
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, excuse me.
Okay. You know, one of the things that makes Clayton so nice is because of its beauty. And it's a very affluent area. And everybody loves coming out here, but they hate the traffic. That's what downgrades our property values. You know, driving out from the freeway all the way here, what's going to happen now? You're going to build more and more houses. You know, what this is all about is greed. It's part of the city making more taxes. Why can't you have a park, make it more open? This is why I moved here in 1984. You know, I own other properties. You know, I've seen this happen. And this is what it's all about. I don't know if Sino has anything to do with it, but I think it has a lot to do with greed and money and taxes. That's what it's all about. And nobody wants to admit that. And that traffic that's going to come in to that, you know, between Lydia Lane and Oakhurst, it's coming right down our street. What are you going to do? Put more street lights? Ignacio, it's so impacted now. Where's all this going to go? And if they develop the Concord Naval Weapons Station, where are the freeways? Where are all these people going to go? I don't know. I just asked that question. I asked that question.
Thank you. Would you please fill out one of the cards?
I want to address that.
You know, I mean, you know,
I mean,
it's quality of life.
Correct. And we all moved here and we all love Clayton.
But it's getting on money now.
We don't own that parcel. We don't own these other parcels. This is not about the city trying to get more tax revenue from houses. Private citizens who own land.
What else is it?
Private citizens who own land have rights, just like you do.
It generates money for the city, too.
What we're trying to do, what staff is actually trying to do, is reduce the amount of homes that a private citizen can build under that. You have no idea how much pressure the state does. Julie knows more than anybody in his room.
I'm sorry, maybe I don't know all that.
I don't either.
But, you know.
But what I'm not trying to denigrate you in any way. I'm saying the state mandates certain things that cities have to do. We cannot arbitrarily say, as a city, you own this land and your dad bought it 40 years ago hoping to develop it when it was ripe, and now you can't do that. We don't have that right because we get sued for that, okay? What we can do through general plans, specific plans, all of those zonings, is we can regulate it. And what staff is actually doing here, and what unfortunately some of the hyperbole that's gone on out there, is we're not increasing density. We're actually decreasing the density. We're doing what you want us to do. Okay? It's frustrating because it's very difficult, and honestly, I don't get it like Julie gets it. I don't get it like Gary and Mendy get it. Okay? But the fact
You
of the matter
understand where
is,
I'm coming from, though?
I do.
Do you?
I totally do, and we all do. We're on your side, and we're doing our jobs. It's frustrating when you say we're out to get more tax revenue. No, we're not. We're trying to regulate private citizens the way we can. And we don't have the ability to just say, guess what? You don't get to build. We can't do it. We're not Hitler. We're not, the Tsar of Russia. So if you actually look at what we're doing what you want us to do. And I hope you can understand that. And I will tell you that you can go down and you can talk to Mindy and you can talk to Gary, and they can walk you through it and explain it way better than I can. But what you're saying and playing in the creek and doing all this stuff, we all have done that ourselves. We all want our grandkids and our kids to do that. We get what you're saying. The problem is we're actually doing what you want.
So actually, this deal's been approved and it's going to go through, is what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying what is brought before us has been an attempt to do the best that we can do to not have Clayton become Concord or Clayton become somewhere else.
It's
You've got to trust that we're doing it.
Okay,
It's reducing
you know,
the poten-
I'm not trying to
Okay,
be
it's re-
argumentative, but,
Well, the other example
you know,
is that the current density requirement would apply to the entire piece of property, and we're saying there's sections on that property that might not be buildable. It's not appropriate to require that the entire piece of property be saddled with that overall requirement, and we should only apply it to that section that actually should be built on, which reduces the number of homes that can be built on that property. It's no longer looking at how many homes can be built on the entire piece, and if you only can build here, all of it has to be built here. We're saying, no, that's not the appropriate way to do it. It's not the best way to manage property in Clayton to keep with our rural character. It should be the same small density, only on the spots that can be built on. That's what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
thank you.
Would you please fill out one of the cards so we have your name spelled properly? I don't have them. They're back on the
cards
We'll
back there.
get you one. We'll get you one. Thank you. Anybody else from the audience wish to address the council on item 7B? No one else?
I guess just one other general question.
Please come forward.
So far, we've talked about this property or this development primarily, as well as the other one on High Street loosely. And Mindy, you mentioned that it was like 98% of Clayton is built out already. So are there other, that's only 2%. Are there a lot of other, is there a lot of other land in Clayton that this would apply to?
Not much left to build
You're
on.
right.
Yeah.
We're pretty well maxed out.
So even though, I get Mindy's comment that this proposal isn't directly related to this development, it is very much indirectly related to this development. So,
Well, I know Mr. Neiman,
City Manager.
but I would take some exception to that because when you're using the property as examples, the properties that are remaining, that are currently zoned for that. That doesn't mean, though, that someone could come in who owns other property and apply for this type of zoning designation, and then this proposed amendment would then apply to them. And I guess maybe if I could summarize it, Mr. Mayor, for those that are concerned about the density in town, one sound bite. The status quo is worse than the proposed amendment. And secondly, for those that may think this is about greed, taxes, and other reasons for that purpose, please know that when you pay your property tax bill, the city of Clayton gets 6.9% of your assessed valuation. That's one of the lowest in the Contra Costa County. So, I, as a 33-year city manager in California, if I were wanting the city to chase after money, I would say no to residential development, and I would look for commercial development, because commercial development not only provides a higher assessed valuation on its ultimate product, but then it has other revenue that spins off of that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last comment?
I'll make it quick. I know that this was actually, Dan Hummer, once again, I know that this was used as an example for, future possible developments and things, But if this actually goes through and the minimum is removed as far as for the development, will that actually apply to this property and to the High Street development and everything like that? They'll basically reassess what needs to be done here, because, I mean, this is actually already in motion. So will that basically turn it over and actually really use what this is intended for, and basically only develop half of this property here and behind High Street there?
Yes, the applicant for Silver Oak Estates will have to resubmit to the city with a plan, project that is compliant with the city's general plan.
Oh,
And
okay.
this would be included in that consideration for his
Oh,
proposed
okay.
project.
All
So
right, thanks. That's a step in the
Thank
right
you.
direction. Thank you.
Seeing no other comments coming forward to the council on this item, I'm going to close the public hearing on this item and bring it back to the city council for action. Yes.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments. I'd like to thank staff for taking a good hard look at much of these properties left in town, which are, most of them, pretty well constrained, or they would have been built on a long time ago. There are a few others that I think of that are not ones that have pending projects now, but they could have. There are other properties along our creeks that have the potential for development. One of them is the Easley Ranch, which is a huge piece of property right in the middle of town. And we know of no intent by those folks to develop anything, but it also has creek property running through it that would be constrained. And that would reduce the buildable acres and would reduce the number of homes that could be built upon it. So I think it's important that we remember that what this has the impact of doing is lowering the number of homes that can be built on a particular property. And I think every one of the speakers tonight has said that's what they want, but they don't understand that that's what we're doing. And so we're doing the best we can without taking away anyone's property rights. We're trying to make the appropriate adjustment to protect the natural assets that we have here in town. The steep slopes, which we said a long time ago in our general plan, cannot be built upon. We also have a practice in town of saying, no, you can't grade those so they are less than 25%. We've made that pretty clear in practice over the years. So we also have in practice limited development on ridge lines. We've limited it on steep slopes. We've limited view sheds so that you can't be within 25 feet of the top of a slope, so that your house isn't seen over the top of a slope. When we did Oakhurst, we limited the development to the north side so that most of the houses can't be seen from the top of Mount Diablo. That was a constraint that Save Mount Diablo asked us to impose on that project. So I think we've been pretty careful all along, and this change is one more tool in the toolbox to allow us to build appropriately and not overbuild on those constrained lots. So I want to compliment staff. Thank you for putting this together. Thank you for doing the hard work on it. Thanks to the Planning Commission for going through all the research last year. I just think it's absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm very, very supportive.
Councilmember Catalano.
So I want to just, I know we've kind of rehashed this a couple times, but it is a very confusing change in kind of what we're trying to do. But I think as I hear everybody's comments and what staff is proposing and what's before us, I think we are at the end in the same page, but maybe I'll take a little bit different stab at, kind of what we're trying to do. So anytime we have zoning regulations, density limits, the sole purpose of that is to essentially put the right kind of product in the right location. So in the general plan, we designate, we believe that this particular zone or location should have this type of massing, this type of volume, this type of density. So that's in the general plan, and we're not changing that. That is what it is there. If somebody wants to change the density limits, we can go through a general plan amendment and change that. But none of us is touching that. That's not on the table today. But what we're really looking at, and if is how we look at those sites that have those constraints. And sort of to put it in very simple numbers, if we have a 10-acre site that under the current zoning before today would allow you to put 50 units in there, what we're doing is, if that 10-acre site, half of it actually is full of creeks, wetlands, species and whatnot, where you really can't develop. So effectively, you have a 5-acre site where you can develop. Do we want that 5-acre site to put those 50 units in that 5 acres? Or effectively, are we going to say that you can only count the density on those 5 acres? So what you have is, instead of 50 units, you have 25 units for those 5 acres.
That's right.
And that's what we're doing. So it's really just taking a realistic look at the actual site, and if it has those kind of constraints where you really can't develop, we're just taking those into consideration. So we're not changing the general plan densities, we're really just looking at how we calculate it. So it does effectively reduce the density. So, and I think for that reason, we are all on the same page, and I'm certainly fully supportive of
And
what we
I
have
think
before
that's the
us.
sentiment we heard from the people that spoke before us. Any other comments?
Well, you've already explained it again, but again, our intent is to try to retain the rural nature that attracted so many people to our lovely city to begin with. And we saw the application in this particular example that would result in a higher density than we thought people typically would want. So staff looked at how can we modify that, modify the requirements to still achieve the same type of lot configuration, but only on the buildable land, which is how I think most people would want it applied. So they have to change the way it's written, and this amendment does that, reducing the required area that you can build on and applying the actual density only to that section. So it's going to retain that rural nature just on the area that can be built on. So that's the intent of this. And I think there's some confusion because of the density reference, and the density actually is going to be improved because it's only going to be focused on the area that can be built.
Thank you. Any other comments? We are ready to take action.
I would move approval of the resolution amending the land use element of the general plan to modify the determination of residential developable acreage and density calculations and not require a minimum density on parcels with sensitive land areas.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those signify support by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Ordered.
I would further move to have the city clerk read ordinance number 476 by title and number only and waive further reading.
Second?
Second, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those signify support by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Ordered.
Ordinance number 476, an ordinance amending Title 17 zoning by adding Chapter 17.22 to the Clayton Municipal Code regarding residential density calculations for residential parcels with sensitive land areas.
I would now move to approve ordinance number 476 for introduction, adding section 17.22, residential density calculations for residential parcels with sensitive land areas to the Clayton Municipal Code, describing and determining how general plan residential densities are calculated for proposed residential projects on parcels with sensitive land areas.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those signify support by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordered. Thank you very much. And thank you all for providing your valuable input on this item. And hopefully everybody understands where we're headed on this now. Okay, we'll now move to the final action item. Item 8A, update report and continued discussion on whether the City of Clayton should participate in a community choice energy program, plus a further presentation of the MCE Clean Energy with the offer to join its Joint Powers Authority. Mindy, please.
Thank you. In October of 2015, the Board of Supervisors directed county staff to research the possibility of forming a Contra Costa County Community Choice Energy Program and to reach out to the cities to determine the willingness to participate in a technical study. The county received adequate support and interest from a number of cities, including Clayton, to conduct and share the cost of a technical study that analyzed 4 possible options. The first option was no change to the status quo and stay solely with PG&E. Number 2, form a CCE partnership among the cities within Contra Costa County, including the county. Number 3, partner with Alameda County and its cities to form a CCE program. Or 4, join the MCE Clean Energy Program. The City of Clayton was first presented with the concept of a CCE program at its meeting of January 19th, 2016, at which time the City Council authorized Contra Costa County to obtain the PG&E load data for all customer classes and confirm the city's interest in studying the formation of a CCE. At this time, the majority of cities within Contra Costa County were not members of a CCE and agreed to support and contribute to this technical study. In January of 2017, the Clayton City Council received a presentation on the draft technical study, and staff asked for preliminary policy direction. The council received the report, however, expressed a preference for additional information prior to providing its policy direction. This is coming back to the council for consideration due to significant movement and key developments that have occurred over the last several months on this topic. Following the release of the draft technical study, the Board of Supervisors indicated to county staff and the public its strong preference to join one of the existing CCE programs, either MCE or EBCE, rather than create a new joint powers authority. And on May 2nd, 2017, the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors decided to join MCE, which eliminated the possibility of forming a Contra Costa County CCE due to lack of feasibility because of the high startup costs, the level of effort, and program risks, as well as the decisions of other jurisdictions within the county to join MCE. Walnut Creek, Lafayette, Richmond, San Pablo, and El Cerrito are all current members of MCE. And in the last several weeks, the jurisdictions of Danville, Oakley, and Moraga, in addition to the county, have all voted to join MCE. Concord, Pittsburgh, and Antioch are all considering joining MCE within the next 2 weeks. And other jurisdictions within the county will be having community forums where there are also a handful of cities that are not taking any action or having any discussions regarding this topic. City staff invited PG&E, MCE, and the new East Bay Community Energy to make presentations at the Clayton City Council meeting for consideration. PG&E declined to present publicly, which has been consistently applied throughout the county during this CCE process. PG&E indicated that due to the topic being highly litigious, the advice and guidance from their legal counsel was to not speak publicly on this matter. PG&E did provide a link to their website, though, discussing their power portfolio as it pertains to clean energy. EBCE was recently formed by Alameda County and its participating cities in October of 2016, with 11 of its 14 cities agreeing to participate. The EBC JPA is relative, sorry for all the acronyms. The EBCE JPA is relatively new, with its first board of directors meeting occurring on January 30th, 2017, and they're in the process of hiring staff and becoming completely established. Further, EBCE is also in the process of submitting an implementation plan to the CPUC, which will discuss rate design, how EBCE will procure energy and carry out the functions required by the California Public Utilities Commission. There are still many unknowns at this time for the possibilities of membership in EBCE. One of the main issues regarding membership is that our city has not been formally invited, and city staff invitation to present to the council seemingly hinged upon Contra Costa County's decision regarding its membership. And following the county's decision to join MCE, city's staff invitation to EBCE to present to the council went unacknowledged without a response. MCE was launched in 2010 and was the first CCE program in the state of California. MCE is currently offering a no-cost inclusion period for those jurisdictions interested in joining the JPA, which has been extended until June 30th, 2017. The default service for MCE is to provide 50% renewable energy but does have the option of choosing 100% renewable energy, but at an increased price. Contra Costa County, with all remaining cities joining, would have an overall voting share of 62%, with Clayton having 1.5% share if the city decides to join. It should be noted the employees of MCE are not part of the CalPERS retirement system, but employ a 401k pension system instead. MCE actually is in attendance tonight and will be providing a more detailed presentation following staff's presentation. The benefits of a CCE are local control, increase of renewable energy, and increase in competition. By joining a CCE, it provides communities with control over energy decisions. The CCE would also be able to maintain control over energy efficiency programs or have programs to guarantee equity in the distribution of efficiency benefits. To the extent that a CCE values renewable energy and alternative energy generation over and above the levels mandated by the state, CCEs can increase the amount of energy generated from renewable sources by offering customers electricity derived from 100% renewable sources. Lastly, PG&E is a large privately owned company and currently has a regulated monopoly in most of Northern California. Consumers within the CCE jurisdiction would have the opportunity to receive electricity from a local public agency governed by officials who would be responsive to the interests of the local community. One risk of joining a CCE would be agreeing to a joint powers authority. By law, the JPA can only be funded from program revenues, which means the city's general fund would be insulated and separated from the JPA, which is a benefit. However, the city would also assume a portion of the debt incurred by the JPA. And if the city wishes in the future to exit the JPA program after inclusion, then there would be a portion cost associated to cover the cost of the power that was procured for the jurisdiction. Also, it is conceivable a CCE could not compete competitively or compete effectively against PG&E by not providing competitive rates with those that are offered by PG&E. Therefore, the CCE would not be financially feasible, which could have implications for the JPA due to long-term contracts for energy procurement. So the council has the following options to consider. First, they could take no action tonight, and this would result in no change to the electrical customers within the city of Clayton by staying completely with PG&E. The council could direct staff to bring this item back at a later date, either in the near future or at a later date if the council wants to decide to revisit the status of the two CCE programs, MCE and EBCE. Or lastly, direct staff to draft a resolution authorizing the city to submit an application for membership to join MCE. Before I hand it over to Ms. Alexandra McGee, who's here representing MCE, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Okay. We're going to get the PowerPoint geared up.
But I have the very good fortune that my colleague Jenna Famularo.
Can you speak at the microphone?
Apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Alexandra McGee, and I am available for questions. I'm the Community Power Organizer, MCE. However, it is my benefit tonight that my colleague Jenna Famularo was able to attend, and because she's been the liaison with your staff for most of this process, I'm going to hand the presentation over to her, but I will be here to answer questions as well.
All right.
Good evening. As Alexandra said, my name is Jenna Famular. I'm MCE's Community Affairs Coordinator. I had asked Alexandra to be present here tonight in my place as I had a different City Council meeting to attend, but things got switched around, so I was able to be here, which I'm grateful for. So I'm just going to go through these slides pretty quickly, kind of give you a general overview of what MCE is, and I can either answer questions at the end, or if you have questions during, I'm happy to take those as well. So MCE is a community choice aggregation program, or community choice energy, as we've been calling it in this process. We are a local not-for-profit electricity provider. So Essentially, how service works is you maintain the same level of service that you have currently, but MCE would take over the generation portion of the electricity bill. So electricity is two components, the generation and the transmission and distribution of it, the delivery of it. When a CCA program comes into existence in a service area, in this case Clayton, they would take over just the generation portion, and PG&E would continue to deliver that electricity as well as maintain all of the lines and do all of the billing processes. That way it's a seamless integration for the customer, but they can choose where their energy is coming from. So that brings us to the concept of choice is power. For community choice aggregation, one of the main services we provide is an option for customers to choose where their electricity is coming from. These are the three basic options. PG&E's default service, which is 30% renewable, customers can continue to choose this option even if a CCA is in place in a community. However, we are an opt-out program, which means that if Clayton decided to join, when enrollment occurs, all of the residents and businesses in the community would be automatically enrolled in MCE's 50% light green service. If they chose to opt out, they're welcome to do that at any time. And they can also opt up to MCE's deep green 100% renewable service at a slight higher cost of 1 penny per kilowatt hour more. For the average customer, it's about $5 more a month. Additionally, I do want to mention that for the light green customer, or for any MCE customer, if you choose to opt out after the first 60 days of service, we do impose a small $5 one-time fee for residential customers and a $25 fee for business customers. However, we start the outreach process really early, usually about 6 months in advance, so customers have that entire time period to decide to opt out.
Can I ask a quick question? I hate to stop you this early. So going forward, a year from now, 2 years from now, can customers and residents kind of switch back and forth? I mean, is there kind of other fees associated with that?
So if they opt out after the first 60 days of service, it's a one-time fee.
Okay.
But PG&E's terms and conditions do require that they stay with PG&E for at least a year if they opt if they opt out of our service after the first 60 days. So customers can switch back and forth, but because of PG&E's terms and conditions, there's basically a year wait time between programs.
But if they, so let's say after that 60 days, they go with PG&E, and then they have to stay with PG&E for a year, they could come back to this option, presumably, and
yes,
with no fee, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So this is just a sample cost comparison. You can see a couple different things in here, but the bottom line is that MCE's 50% light green service, our basic service, is still slightly cheaper, we're talking 40 cents here, than PG&E, but you're getting 20% more renewable electricity from this service. To break it down a little bit more, you can see the top line here has electric delivery, and this cost is the same for all electric service customers in this area. So all customers, PG&E or MCE, regardless of their service, receive the same cost for the delivery of that energy. The next line is the generation. You can see that MCE's generation for both our 50% and 100% options are significantly less expensive than PG&E. But the next line here are PG&E exit fees, which factor into the bottom line. So when we say we're less expensive, we're always referring to the bottom line because that's what a customer sees on their bill. They don't necessarily see the breakdown of generation and transmission. So that exit fee, as was mentioned earlier, is intended to reimburse PG&E for the cost of contracts that they've previously entered into for customers that are now a part of the Community Choice Aggregation Program. So there's a lot of different things that go into this exit fee, but it's something that is currently a topic of discussion at the Public Utility Commission. So if you have questions about that, Alexandra here is actually our expert.
So is that exit fee then permanent unless
It's intended to be tied to contract lengths. So 20-year contracts, 30-year contracts, and then it would expire over that period of time. Right now, the way that that's tied to contracts is a little bit up in the air. Do you want to comment on that? It's an ongoing discussion.
Yeah. So essentially, it's not a one-time charge. It's monthly. It's tied to the kilowatt-hour usage of every customer that uses their electricity. So if you use more electricity, it'll be more than $13 on your screen. And as Jenna points out, it's tied to the contracts that PG&E entered into on your behalf. And so once those contracts expire, and those lengths can be anywhere from 10 to 25 years, then we are expecting this charge, the PCIA, to expire at that time.
Would this charge ever go up if more and more customers leave PG&E?
So it's distributed proportionally. So that is currently a discussion at the Public Utilities Commission, or CPUC, because we're looking at this community choice aggregation style program is taking off in California. In PG&E service area, they're expecting, I think, 60% of their service area to be served by a community choice program in the next 30 years. So you are looking at a definite change in the way that we generate, procure, and manage electricity in the state. But the simple answer to your question is that no. If for some reason all of Fresno is now enrolled in CCA service, all of Los Angeles, the contracts that you are liable for are just the contracts entered into on your behalf. So Los Angeles, if it removes itself from its service, that doesn't affect your contracts. Is that clear?
But it would affect you in the serving area, potentially.
So the PCIA charges right now, they're tied to a year. So in Marin, for example, they're tied to 2012. So if you are a customer in Marin, because most of the Marin communities exited PG&E service in 2012, that's where the contracts are tied to. So for Walnut Creek and Lafayette, those were tied to a 2016 PCIA vintage. So if Clayton were to leave, they would be tied to a 2017 or 2018 vintage. So if the PCIA did change, there could be changes for other customers, but because you're already tied to a vintage, that should remain the same.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the bill comparison? Obviously, this is just a snapshot, so. Okay. So this is the way that a bill looks currently with just PG&E service. You see a charge on your bill that just says current electric charges, and that's everything all bundled together. When you have MCE service, you see that the electric generation charge is actually broken out on your bill. It's a separate line item, so you can see that the delivery and the generation are separate, and they're coming from two separate entities. When you join MCE, you take advantage of our inclusion period, which right now through the end of June is free membership application. We do have a track record. We've been in operation since 2010. We serve 255,000 customers, including 5 communities in Contra Costa. We also we have economies of scale for being a larger program and also being in this for a while. We have relationships built and credit ratings and things like that, including long-term contracts, locked-in wholesale prices, and a sizable reserve of about $50 million. You avoid things like the startup costs that were mentioned, as well as any kind of funding or questions about loans. So that's just some of the benefits that we offer. Additionally, our mission is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from electricity-related sources, and in 4 years, we were able to take 122,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions out of the air, which is about 26,000 cars. So we're pretty excited about that. We're hoping to update our numbers for 2015 in a couple months. So,
Question back on that slide then. With so many communities real close to making this decision, do you expect that free inclusion period may move out a month or two?
we don't anticipate moving the inclusion period. We may open another inclusion period later on, but we did extend the deadline from May to the end of June, and we have had 5 communities now decide to join, including Pittsburgh just yesterday. So we're most likely not going to be extending the deadline, but we could open one in the future. So that's kind of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Also, this is just sort of a snapshot of the greenhouse gas emissions reductions that we can offer for some of the Contra Costa communities. You could see communities like Pittsburgh, they could meet 73% of their climate action plan towards their 2020 goal just by switching to MCE service, which is a no-cost measure. Governance is a question that's come up a lot. Currently, the largest board vote on MCE is actually Walnut Creek, followed by Richmond. So it's actually 2 Contra Costa cities that are the largest voters on our board. And if every community in Contra Costa voted to join, Contra Costa County would be the largest, followed by Concord. Since Contra Costa has voted to join, they will be the largest voting member. I think it's just important to keep in mind, this is something that has been discussed a lot, that we do weight all of our votes. So we have a weighted voting structure based on the electrical load of the community. So if you have a larger load, you have a higher weighted vote. However, we've never actually called a weighted vote. There's only been one weighted vote called in the history of CCA in California. We have a very cordial board. They really talk to each other and communicate, and MCE is a family, so if you're a part of the community, what's good for one community is good for another. So I just wanted to talk about that.
And I'm sorry, the weighted vote for Clayton would be, you said 1%?
Clayton would be 1.5%. But Clayton, as we
So we just can't piss off mom and dad?
Well, so we've talked about this before, actually. Marin has a lot of really small communities, so Clayton wouldn't be the smallest community. It would actually be the 6th smallest community. So it would be kind of at the bottom, but not as far down as some of the smaller communities. But again, it's not something that should come into any kind of question. You're a person just like everyone else on the board, and they all talk to each other as human beings, not about the size of their community. So although small is beautiful. So solar cash out is something that comes up a lot. MCE offers a net energy metering program that offers benefits to customers with rooftop or parking structure solar above what PG&E offers. So we offer cash outs for solar customers if they have excess generation, and we credit your excess generation at retail generation rates plus a penny per kilowatt hour. Our Deep Green service is an additional penny per kilowatt hour, and because you're supplying 100% renewable energy, we want to pay you what we charge customers for 100% renewable energy. So in 2016, we actually paid over $1 million to our customers, including approximately $250,000 in Contra Costa. The West Contra Costa School District actually got a check for a little over $28,000, and San Pablo got a check for a little over $75,000. We like to give these really big checks, let you know it's coming. In 2017, we're actually expecting to pay about $1.25 million to all of our solar customers. So if you have a lot of solar here in Clayton, that's something that you could possibly take advantage of. Additionally, something that we talk about is our feed-in tariff program. This is a standard 20-year contract that we offer to small-scale solar developers for projects less than 1 megawatt. We pay higher than retail rates for this energy. Right now, we're in condition 3 of the program, which pays about $115 a megawatt hour at peak versus retail, which is closer to $30. So we incentivize this for developers to come in and build a project that will pencil out for them. So it helps stimulate local economic development and renewable energy build out. And also, we are very heavily involved in community outreach. Alexandra and I are just 2 examples of our community outreach staff on our public affairs team, and since the end of April, we conducted 43 outreach events in Contra Costa alone. That doesn't include our Marin communities and our Napa communities, so we're very invested in getting out in the community and letting people know what's going on and answering their questions if they have any. This is just a snapshot from Oakley Citizen Advisory Committee, what they said about our outreach efforts, that we are just really going for it. I'll let you read this, but it's in your slide deck. Additionally, a little update, as was mentioned earlier, Moraga, Danville, the Board of Supervisors, and Oakley all voted to join MCE, and then last night, Pittsburgh voted to join MCE, and the Martinez, I think it's Franchise and Public Infrastructure Subcommittee, voted to recommend MCE to their board, so that will be going before their board on June 7th. And that's it. I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Any questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Shuey. Mr. Shuey.
Okay. You said you've been around since 2010 here?
Mm-hmm. Well, so we started service in Marin in 2010.
Okay. So have you actually, since 2010, provided lower electricity rates than PG&E?
Yes. 70% of the time we've provided lower electricity rates. I'm just looking to see if that slide is in my appendices here. It's not in there. So I can get you that slide. It actually has the breakdown of what that looks like, but 70% of the time we've been less expensive, and it's part of our mission to remain competitive and also have stable rates. So we only change our rates once a year. Last year we decided to change them in September. We generally change them every April. So last September we lowered them 9%, and then this April we lowered them about another 4%.
The 30% that you were not, I don't get.
We were within a couple percentage points, but usually it's...
For how long?
Yeah.
So the way that, again, to get back to the power charge and difference adjustment, the exit fee that's charged, so that is usually proposed, it goes before the California Public Utilities Commission in December, is voted on in December, and goes into effect in January. So that doesn't give us much time to respond to that increase. It has been increasing over the last couple years, and so for the first quarter of many of the years of service, we end up on the bottom line being more expensive because of this increase in the exit fee. municipality. So that's why typically in April, our board will take a vote as to how to adjust our rates in response. It's usually been to decrease them, to absorb a lot of the impact that the exit fee might have. But as a result, often in the first quarter, we may be a little bit more expensive because of that increase.
But do you expect your fee to drop as you add more and more customers?
The exit fee or the rate structure,
Rate.
you mean? So the rates are tied to a couple things, one of which is the price that we secure contracts at, as well as the flexibility that we have in our reserves. So one of the ways that we're able to stabilize and lower rates is by utilizing funds from our reserves. Because we're a public agency, we don't have shareholders that we need to distribute profits to. So we can use those reserves in a couple of different ways, and one of them is adjusting our rates. So we're not expecting to have the rates increase significantly. And also, we part of this inclusion period is we conduct a feasibility study to ensure that if a community is included in MCE, that does not cause the rates for existing customers to increase. So we're welcoming new communities in as long as it doesn't affect the bottom line for the customers that we currently have. Does that kind of answer your question?
Well, based on thresholds, I would have expected the price to come down as you add more and more customers and can spread it further.
There is economy of scale for buying larger contracts. We focus on renewable energy and as much California energy as we can get. But we also have seen that we've had far more contracts available than we're actually able to take. So energy prices have been really low, and they've been decreasing with the amount of solar on the grid. So there's opportunity for that. Alexandra, do you want to speak to that more? I mean, I think that's really a procurement question, and it's something that we see as we go into the open market, what all of those things look
But you
like.
just adjust annually?
Yes, we do that because we want to keep our rates stable also. PG&E changes their rates usually 3 to 5 times a year, which can be confusing for customers. That was one of the big issues with the this past summer. They increased their gas rates in the summer, and in the winter, people noticed that. With us, we just make sure that it's very clear. We do it every April. That's basically all we do.
David?
And I apologize if it was in your presentation. If we don't do it during the free inclusion, what is the cost if we later decide to do
It's generally around $15,000, but that's something, one time, yeah, for the feasibility study. That's generally what it is.
Okay. And let's see, how much of the fees and costs are, how big is your JPA bureaucracy of
Like how many people? And
yeah, how much have you grown since you started? How big's your staff?
We have about 40 people on our staff right now. We're still just at the one location in San Rafael, but we're looking to get an East Bay office. If all of the communities in Contra Costa joined, we would be doubling our load. So that would require us to take on new staff. But we've actually grown pretty slowly. I mean, 40 people over 7 years isn't too many, and we're about a 4% overhead for staff costs, which is on par with other nonprofit agencies of this type. We're about $180 million a year overall is our agency.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I guess I have a question. It may be kind of a silly question, but so the exit fee comes into place if the city decides to exit the JPA, right?
The exit fee that we're referring to is when a community votes to join the JPA. That exit fee is charged by PG&E to individual customers.
Got it. Okay, so let me go back and then, so I guess the other one, so one of the risks, I guess, in our staff report is that, if in the future, one of the things that the city will do is that it will assume a portion of the debt of the JPA.
No.
But it will only incur that, I guess, if the city decides to remove itself from
So the JPA actually creates a firewall, so the city doesn't assume any of the debt of the JPA. We actually don't have any debt currently, but you wouldn't assume that regardless. If you later, so kind of two separate points, if you later decided to leave the JPA, there would be a fee associated with that, because similar to PG&E, we've entered into contracts on your behalf, which requires money. So if you wanted to leave, that would be your choice, but it would require some sort of fee.
Like what?
Yeah.
It's a very good question. In the JPA, I think it's Section 8, City Attorney, maybe you know off the top of your head. I think it's around Section 8. We do have a withdrawal provision. that does lay out the process for a member community leaving the Joint Powers Authority. However, we do emphasize that this is a long-term commitment. We believe that the costs that would be associated with with leaving would be cost prohibitive to any one of our member communities. So we do encourage your council to take this decision pretty much as a long-term commitment. No community has yet voted to leave a CCA, so we don't really know what that looks like. I think it's just our expectation that it would be prohibitive at this time.
Yeah, I guess I was referring in our staff report, there's a section here, and one of the risks and costs of joining a CCE is that the city would also assume a portion of any debt incurred by the JPA, and if the city wishes in the future to exit the JPA program after inclusion, then there would be a portion cost associated to cover the cost of the power that's procured in that jurisdiction. And
Yeah, so that's two separate things. The JPA, as I said, creates a firewall. So any debts that MCE had, if we had debts, there's no ownership of them from the city of Clayton. If we went under, you would not be responsible at all. The JPA is completely separate. You're not responsible for any debt, anything like that. That exit fee would be part of the withdrawal provision. If you decided to leave, it would be just for the cost of contracts. It's not any type of debt from MCE at all.
So it's really not, so if the JPA for some reason were to dissolve or something like that, it's not that the city is responsible for whatever debt. It's only really if the city decides to withdraw from the JPA.
Correct.
Got it, okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, this
hold
is...
on, hold on. All right. Since you and others are undertaking this, how has PG&E been responding? Are they trying to throw up roadblocks? Are they trying to throw additional fees? That $13, transfer fee or the delivery fee, are they trying to ratchet that up, or what's going on?
That exit fee is an ongoing discussion, just sort of figuring out what that looks like, and with growing CCA communities, how does that adjust, and how do we sort of deal with that together? How do CCAs and PG&E deal with that together? So that's it's just an ongoing discussion right now. As far as the other concerns, PG&E, it's interesting for them actually, because the generation and the transmission and distribution are regulated to be separate organizations. They're both under the PG&E mantle, but they have to be completely independent. PG&E also cannot make a profit on any generation that they're passing through from contracts, only on generation that they own. So for them, it actually gives them an opportunity to sell off some of those more expensive long-term contracts, and then we can take over that generation portion. So there have been PG&E people who have said we might just become a lines and pipes and wires company. There's a whole range of attitudes about this, but they've definitely come to terms, and we're partners with them, and the other agencies are partners with them, helping make sure that the customers have the best service that is available to them.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of council? All right, this is a public item, so we're now going to open it up to those in the audience that wish to address this item. Anyone coming forward, please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, Mark Ventura. So I'm not really familiar with that, but I would recommend the council to take no action tonight. Would like to study this topic a little more. Just to be aware, the state of California has a lot of legislation already on the books to go toward 100% renewables. Recently, Senate Bill 100 is targeting a 100% renewable. So if the concern is to go to renewable energy, the state has already mandated the utilities to do that. So I don't think we need to have an additional entity, additional overhead, additional liability. These example of the fees, who knows what's going to be tomorrow, 10 years from now. The other question is, where is all this power coming from? MCE doesn't own any power generation, just writing a contract with somebody. So where are the power plants coming from, the solar powers? So again, I recommend voting against it or not taking no action.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to address? Please come forward, state your name.
Hi, I'm Dan Hummer. Actually, I'm echoing Mark's question. Basically, where's all the generation coming from? This is all basically all contract talk and everything like that, but behind the scenes it has to actually be produced, right? I mean, you're selling generation, the generation of it, right? Where is this coming from? You know, and you know, PG&E, yes, is transmitting this, but how is that? How is the actual migration over, as far as, you know, cutting over to your service? How is that done? And how are, you know, if all of these cities are actually signing up for the service? I mean, we're talking, you know, megawatts, you know, tenfold, right? Each of the communities. How are you actually going to be able to supply that amount of energy that's going on, where you're practically looking to get all of Contra Costa County in there when you already have Marin? Where is it all coming from, and where's the redundancies in that? Because as far as if you can't supply the energy, do you actually basically buy back from PG&E at that point and have them supplement you? But then at that point we're paying a slightly higher rate for the same energy that we're getting right now. So how is that all done as far as keeping up with the demand?
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address this item 8A? We'll close the public comment portion of this time and move it back to the council for any further discussion. Yes, sir.
Maybe they could answer that question
Yes.
for the public. I think
Yes.
that's probably important to get that
Absolutely.
answered.
Okay, so this is just a small snapshot of some of the power resources that we have in California. A lot of our power comes from California, and this year all of our deep green 100% renewable service is California in-state energy, 50% wind and 50% solar. All of our contracts are from the Pacific Northwest, but we do try to procure as much as we can from inside California. We do also have this indicator of local versus nearby. So any projects that are in MCE service area are considered local projects. Anything within 100 miles of our service area is considered nearby. We don't currently own any of our generation, but we are in the process of building MCE Solar One. This project here in Richmond, it's a 10.5 megawatt facility that we've partnered with Richmond Build in the city to put this project together, support 351 jobs, local hire requirements, so there's an economic development component of this as well. But this project we will purchase back from the developer over the next 6 to 10 years. One of the reasons that we don't currently own any of our generation is because when you produce new solar developments, there's a tax appetite for that, and because we're a public agency, we can't take advantage of that. So the developer essentially has the opportunity to take advantage of the tax appetite for the project until those taxes are concluded, in which case they can then sell the project back to MCE and we'll begin to own our own generation sources. So that's just a couple of points on that. We do also have a lot of documentation on our webpage. I don't have it with me now, but it lists all of the contracts that we have, including our integrated resources plan, which is our procurement planning document that talks about all the contracts, where they're from, who the companies are, and that's available on our webpage. Did I answer all of the questions?
Did I answer your question?
Yes, no. I'm actually, I like the idea of solar, but obviously all generations on the West Coast, and what percentage do you say was actually solar?
I don't, so our power content label, so that's just for our 100% renewable service. So we do have our 50% renewable service as well, and the power content label overall, I don't have a copy of that with me, but again, it's on our webpage, and that shows you the actual portion of all of our energy that's solar.
So obviously after the sun goes down, obviously you don't have the largest battery bank in the world, so, and the wind isn't, you're not getting that much energy from the wind. I know that there's higher dams,
Yes.
like that. So where's all the energy that's consumed in the evenings and things like that? And
Yeah.
it also gives you basically took out half of your generation, where is the redundancy then for actually supplying power to your customers?
So we are subject to the same redundancies that other agencies in California are. So we do have to procure 115% of our load, so that if anything happened, we would have an additional 15% for peak days, or if something went offline and we needed that energy, we have that available, and we do actually secure a little bit over that as well. The question of evening renewables is an ongoing one. Basically, the way that renewables are accounted for, and energy in general is accounted for in the system, is that you're putting electrons on the grid at any given time, and then you are counting, those electrons are assigned to you by the California State Agency that monitors all of this. So not all of the energy that is coming into your home at any given time, those electrons are not necessarily coming from MCE or from solar or from any given source. They're just put onto the grid. And that's what you're paying for, is to see the overall energy content and portfolio of the grid shift towards more renewable and carbon-free sources. The ongoing discussion that's happening not just with community choice aggregation, but with the California state legislature and all of the other agencies, is how do we manage the input of new renewable sources. So that are things like battery storage, it's things like looking at alternative fuel, things like biomass and biogas, which can be online all day long, and other considerations with things like electric vehicles or energy efficiency or demand response components. So there's a lot of different factors in that, and the market right now for that is shifting very quickly, but those are all things that are included in that question of how do we manage more renewables on the grid.
All right. If you want to address it, would you please come up to the microphone so people can hear you on the streaming?
So in essence, you're using PG&E as a battery bank. You're pretty much during the day you're generating solar, right? And you're basically backfeeding the grid, in essence, right? And then during the night, you're basically drawing from them. You're basically getting credits, right, for the amount of energy that's on there, and then we were actually pulling from PG&E later on in the evening. Is that correct?
Sort of. We don't actually pull anything directly from PG&E. It's just that all of the suppliers on the grid have contracts for certain things, and those suppliers are actually the ones who we would be pulling energy from. So it may be someone who happens to have a contract with PG&E, but it's not necessarily directly PG&E energy. But this is also something that PG&E may be doing, where during the day they're not running any of their plants and they're pulling solar or wind off the grid that we might be putting on the grid. So it's just sort of an overall sort of bucket. You're just dumping all of your electrons in the bucket, and then you pick from the bucket at will, and then the California Independent System Operator decides who put what in the bucket and then what they get to account for, is sort of how that works.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Clayton has a question.
You've announced that just recently, sounds like the county, Danville, Moraga, and Oakley have all voted to join.
As well as Pittsburgh.
When do you anticipate these coming online? It's going to be quite a process, I would think.
Yeah, so we're looking at how to properly phase all of the communities in, but May of next year is when we're looking to get enrollment going. We might decide to do that a little bit sooner, but that's an ongoing discussion with our procurement team, and it requires a lot of moving pieces. So May 2018 is what we're saying definitively right now, but we will definitely be letting our communities know as we have more information.
In May, you would anticipate all of these new?
Most likely not all of the new communities.
That's
no.
when you would start the transition.
It's when we're hoping to have the bulk of things sort of settled.
I'm trying to get a sense of if we approved, when would we look to actually begin to receive that?
The short answer is I don't know. It's an ongoing discussion that we're having with our procurement team, and we're actually planning to have a meeting about it next week to determine what the best process for that is. It could be something like we're going to go ahead and enroll communities by when they voted, or it could be something by geographical area, or it could be something by load. Those are all things that we are having an ongoing discussion about. But if a community votes to join, we're transparent. These things are discussed at the board meetings, and we'll let all of the communities know as soon as we know.
So all of this then would be delayed until the actual cutover, or what?
Yeah, so we start our outreach efforts. We'll start working with staff probably in the fall of this year to put together community outreach plans. And then what we do is we go out into the community. We go to farmers markets, we go to schools, we go to churches, we go to any events that you think we should be at, and we start educating the public. So that process will begin early next year, and then we're hoping that by the time enrollments roll around in May, the public will have an idea of what choices they can make. So the process will start sooner, fall of this year, but as far as actual enrollment switchover date, you have MCE service, it'll be closer to May of next year.
Then with all this being not actually engaging the communities until fall, just with the initial outreach and cutover sometime next year, what's the urgency then to make a decision
It's part of the open inclusion period. So we opened the inclusion period last year, actually in October, and we offered communities a chance to join if they wanted to. So it's not really a sense of urgency. It's just that we had this deadline for the purpose of letting all of the communities come together, because when we have a set number of communities, it really reduces the financial cost of conducting the feasibility study. We used to not have inclusion periods. We used to just let communities approach and join as they wanted to, but we realized that it required a lot more resources, both financially and time-wise, from staff. This is the most efficient way to do this, including power procurement and pricing for the new communities that come in.
Okay. Anything else from the council?
No questions.
Okay. I'm going to close this item for public input at this time, and let us, yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, we've been looking at their existing contract while there's been the discussion, and the staff indicated that it would, if you intended to go to that action, it'd be by resolution, but we now have found that it would be by ordinance. So there need to be the introduction and adoption of the ordinance. And I guess this is for Jenna. If the council gives that direction, if the ordinance is adopted but it's not effective until past June 30th, you would accept the city's intent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to now bring it back here for action. So what's the pleasure of the
Comments first, but Julie, go ahead.
All right, Julie.
Well, I was going to make a comment, too. You know, when we first started talking about this, I thought this was a great idea, and now I'm not there. For one thing, we are talking about electricity only. I don't know about the rest of you, but the biggest bill I get is gas, and this doesn't do squat for that unless I convert everything that is now gas over to electric, which is a huge cost. And I would guess that, like Dave, I'm probably not going to give up my gas stove for anything. But I appreciate the clean energy, the renewables. Going to PG&E's website today, they are already meeting the requirements for the state to have a third of their energy in renewable resources by 2020. They're already meeting that as of 2016. They have nearly 70%, 69.3% of their electric power mix is from nuclear, large hydro, and renewable sources of energy. And that same 69.3% is from sources which emit no greenhouse gases already. And the standards go up as we go forward. And I have no reason to believe that they won't meet those standards. Why is that important? Well, to me, it's important because whatever we say, PG&E is still the 800-pound gorilla. They're the ones with the buying power. They're the ones that are going to get the best prices on contracts for renewable energy, for any kind of energy. I have a hard time believing that community choice energy groups are going to be able to beat PG&E when bidding on contracts and get them at costs that are affordable. So I guess I am concerned about that. PG&E has to be at 50% renewable by 2030. They're already at 30% or 32.8%. I can't believe that they won't be able to meet those targets. The other thing that concerns me, and I've been talking with some of our engineers at the Transportation Authority and some of our consultants there, and as you know, we've got our autonomous vehicle test bed, and so they're talking to people in the battery industry, the other markets. That technology is changing so fast, and the cost of installing your own solar is dropping so fast. The potential for storage and generating your own electricity over the next 5 years is going to dramatically change. I personally, as you know, I already have solar on my roof, and this would be nice. It would be a better rebate than what I'm getting from PG&E. There's no question. But I'm not comfortable that this is the right time. I think, given what it would cost us to withdraw from this program if it turns out to be more expensive, it is cost prohibitive. Don't even know what it was going to cost. I'm not willing to commit Clayton to that. I'm just not. I think it's too soon for us to make that choice for our own citizens. We take great care not to have debt. We take great care to manage our funds. I'm not sure that this is the financially stable agency that it sounds like. I'm just not convinced yet. Anyway, I'm going to vote no.
So I think Julie and I are similar in some respects. I think the idea here is great, and I think that just because PG&E is mandated to do something by 2030, that doesn't mean they shouldn't step it up and do it quicker, and you guys are forcing them to probably step up to the plate more. The idea, though, that of joining a JPA, adding another government bureaucracy, we've really seen how well California has managed bureaucracy. And Julie's right. We in Clayton have done a great job of managing the bureaucracy and not getting into debt. The idea of joining a JPA where we have, I don't care how great mom is to you now, but if you piss mom off, mom's sending you to your room and you don't get any dinner and you don't get any choice. I was trying to think of potential areas if they decide that, okay, we worked in Richmond, now we want to put one somewhere else. They're not coming to Clayton because we're not going to have the capacity to do something. But they could basically say, we're going to now throw, a huge amount at Concord, and everybody's got to pay for that. And if it blows up with cost overruns, everything else, all that stuff, we're all of a sudden in that bureaucracy. I've yet to see a bureaucracy that actually keeps overhead at the current rate or goes down. That's just the nature of government. But I guess I have the same issues that Julie has. We wouldn't even be close to driving the boat. We'd be back on a tow line hoping that we can keep our head above water and hoping that mom still likes us in 10 years. That's the nature of the beast. That's not saying that it's not perfect now, but my job isn't to say that it's perfect now. Mine's to look at worst case scenario, and we've got no say once we join in. Basically, we can be thrown around to the wolves, and our option is to get out and pay fees and costs. Let's take I'm conservative by nature, so let's take my option is take a conservative approach, monitor this. Let's look.
Right.
They seem to have done some good things since 2010. Let's see in a year or two how big the bureaucracy has grown, how much of their overhead is now, is that grown? What is PG&E responding? I'm very leery, and I think this is kind of jumping in under this. Ooh, we got a free inclusion period. $15,000 is not a huge make or break thing if we decide that it's the right thing when we get there. So I'm gonna join Julie and say that I think we ought to take no action and bring this back maybe in a year and see what it is. And of course, if you want, you may decide, well, we don't care about you, Clayton, and that's fine. But the reality is, I think there's something sticking with me also that I don't think this is right for us at this time.
Well, my concern is they've got a good track record so far, but they're still basically a young company, new on the block, and they're going to be adding a lot of customers here pretty quickly. And I'm concerned with overcommitment on being able to serve all these new customers because it's a massive operation. And I tend to be conservative as well. I like to make sure something's going to work before we approve it, particularly for a widespread application, and if there's any exposure for potential damages in the future, which is right now unknown what that would be if something does happen and they're unable to make those commitments, meet them. There's just some few unknowns out there that I think it's a little early to jump on the bandwagon, which a lot of people have done that, and that I think is going to have an impact that we should analyze and kind of watch and see how they do.
Yeah.
So I'm honestly very torn by this. I'm very attracted by the idea of having renewable energy. 2030 for PG&E seems like a long time away. So the idea that you could go to something even 50% or 100% renewable very quickly is very attractive to me. But like I said, I'm very torn. I think I have a lot of questions still in my mind about the costs and potential consequences if a customer switch and all these things that I don't think we have enough information on. I think it seems like the immediate rush to join right now before June 30th is the free inclusion period, and I agree. I don't think $15,000 is that significant of a cost given the overall scheme of what we're talking about. So, like I said, I'm really kind of on the fence on it, but I don't think, to me, holding it off for a little while would be the end of the world, and I'd rather make the right decision than be faced with negative consequences.
And I, too, echo that conservative view that let's see how it plays out, see how it grows. Does it have the ability to serve all of those clients that are going to be signing on? And I, too, am worried about the staff function that could blossom there as well. So I guess...
And I hope we're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do. I hope, I like the idea behind it, but it scares me. So.
Well, I guess where we're here to do is...
So I say we direct staff to bring this back.
Wait and see.
Let's say in a year, and see what's going on.
That's fine.
Take a look at it.
That's a consensus.
No action, a year sounds good, because I hear that they'll change their rates each April, so that would be a good time.
And thank you for coming out and giving the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you,
We do
MC.
appreciate it.
They're the only ones that stepped up.
Okay.
And we appreciate that, too.
Yep.
We do.
Right. All right, that concludes item number 8A, and item 9 is council items for future meetings. Any issues or directives? Anybody have anything they want? Yes, ma'am.
I have actually a question. We've been talking a lot in ABAG and other venues about a lot of the changes in housing law, the inclusion of accessory dwelling units and the new regulations there, what that means. I'm wondering if we want to look a little bit more at how to facilitate that with our own customers. We've said in our housing element that granny units or that kind of thing is something we want to promote. And I'm wondering if the new laws give us opportunity to do more of that. I also wonder if it's time to look, and I'm just asking questions here, throwing out a thought that's been niggling at me for some time, whether we want to look at our maximum lot coverages again in light of some of these new rules. So just something to think about.
And just to note that city staff is in the process of drafting an ordinance to address ADUs.
No idea.
So that will be forthcoming to council.
I wanted to put that on for tonight, but she said no.
I figured 5 staff reports was plenty.
We're on the same page. Thank you.
I look for that sometime in the summer, is coming to you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else to be added? Nothing? Okay, the council is now going to move into closed session, and we want to thank everybody for attending as we go into a discussion on Government Code Section 54-956.8, a conference with the real property negotiator. We will provide instructions to the city's negotiators concerning price and terms of payment of the real property at 222 Stranahan Circle.
Can we
Se-
take about a 2-minute break?
Yes, we
while
will.
Larry gets
And
out of here?
and secondly, we will be going into Government Code Section 54956.8, conference with the real property negotiator for 6005 Main Street. And instructions of the city negotiators and council members Pierce and Shuey, and we'll take a 2-minute break.